let's use our new model to start rounding off some of the other API calls as well. So in this lesson, let's tackle the two get API calls that we have. So as you'll recall, we have a get to the root get slash, and that lists out all the users, and getting a particular user is done by this particular URL. So now we can head back to our Mongoose npm.js page, and we'll see that we have this myModel.find function. So this is going to be useful to us when it comes to actually searching for data within our Mongo database. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this particular function here. And this code we'll just put here. And now we just have to manipulate it so that it does what we want. So instead of myModel, we've called ours userModel. This find with the empty braces is basically saying find all users, because this is kind of like the where clause if you're used to SQL, or it's specifying which conditions you're searching the Mongo database for. So searching by 0 conditions means finding everyone. I'm going to rename this to users. So if there's an error, it will be stored in this variable. Otherwise, the users will be stored in this variable. And then now all we have to do is return our successful API response and pass users as the data. So if we go ahead and do this, I'll issue a GET request to the root, and you'll see that I have 3 users in my Mongo database. I've created a few while I was not on the video as well. So that takes care of the GET request for all users, but what about fetching a single user? Well, now we can just copy and paste this code, and instead of checking our array as we did before, in fact, let's go ahead and just delete our fake database altogether. Now what we can do is we can say find1 is also a function that the Mongoose module supports. So I'm going to say find1, and I'm going to say search where ID is rec.params.id. So the difference now when we're accessing an individual user is instead of passing a number like 1 or 2 or 3, now we are going to be searching on that long hash that you've seen, where it's the actual Mongo ID. So let's put in a little bit of error checking just to say that if the user was not found, and to do that we can just say if user equals null. I'll borrow this failure call. I'll make it a 404, which means not found. And I'll just say the specified user could not be found. Otherwise, what I'm going to do is return a success with the information about that particular user. So find1 where the ID is equal to whatever's coming in. If the user is null, which means it could not be found, then issue a failure response, otherwise issue a success. And if I want to be extremely thorough, I can also say if there's some other kind of error, I'll actually just output a 500 as well. So I'll just say something like something went wrong while fetching the user from the database. Okay, so let's go back to Postman and quickly just try this out. I'm going to copy and paste the ID of our first user. And if I go /user/ID, made a little typo, or rather I forgot to remove the restriction that the ID has to be numeric. So let's just say that the ID is a required field, doesn't have to be numeric. And now we get the information about our particular user back. So what happens if I just change one of these numbers? Let's say we change this 0 to a 1. Now it should not find this user. And you can see we get our failure. The specified user could not be found. Okay, that's it for this lesson, and I'll see you in the next lesson.